Good morning, children. Let's take a look at your final exam review packet. I haven't looked at this since last year, so you'll actually see me sort of struggling my way through it and figuring things out, but hopefully what I come to will be correct in the end. So, 2016 semester 2. Yeah, I just printed last year's version. It's the same this year, so don't worry about that. Don't freak out about the date. That's just me being lazy, didn't feel like going in and fixing it. Semicolons. We've talked about this rather a lot as the year has gone on, so hopefully this won't be super surprising. They join independent clauses in two ways, as shown in the examples below. So humpback whales are the slowest moving of all whales. They are also the most playful. The semicolon connects two independent clauses. Makes sense? Right here, this could be a sentence, that could be a sentence. They have to be able to stand on their own on either side. Humpback whales are the subject, and the verb is are, and then this is what they are. Same here. Subject is they, are is the verb, and then also the most playful is the predicate adjective that describes the complement that says what they are. Humpback whales are very social whales, therefore they take the time to play. The semicolon is often used with a conjunctive adverb. Note where to place the semicolon and comma. Really, this is getting a little bit pedantic. Don't worry about it that much. Still, therefore they take the time to play. Yeah, okay. It looks a little bit, it doesn't stand on its own the same way, but it still is like we've got our subject and verb in the complete thought, and you just can't use a comma before therefore. This one might trick you up a little bit. This one should be pretty easy, right? So let's take a look and we'll see if we can follow those patterns. Even if you don't remember all the terminology, just look for the patterns. So humpback whales migrate. Every year they spend summers in cool northern waters. If you don't put a semicolon in here, that means that they migrate only in the years when they spend summers in cool northern waters, but they actually do that every year. So this is our subject of the second clause. Here goes our semicolon. And my pencil is broken. That's awesome. These whales can't smell, taste, or see well. However, they have excellent hearing. So that's the second pattern. Period. However, comma. It's however is the same as the therefore thing. A lot of grown adults mess that up, but it's something you really should know. All right, we're gonna get confident and use a pen because that's all I got. So, well, however. A lot of people just put the comma before however, and that's wrong. The calves drink up to 2 gallons of milk per feeding. They may feed 48 times per day. Again, they is the subject. Look for that. And if at this rate they gain up to 200 pounds a day, they also grow nearly a foot a week. See how it all kinds of runs together now? You look for that subject of the second clause, semicolon, splits them up. Humpback whales are disappearing at an alarming rate. Their population has dwindled from 102,000 to 8,700. Their population is the subject because what it's doing, it's dwindling. The verb is dwindled or has dwindled, and the thing that has dwindled is the population. So, semicolon here. Yeah? All good so far? Good. So that's semicolons. That pen's better. Now, colons, all kinds of different things you do. In a formal letter, you do a colon after the greeting, rather than a comma in an informal letter. We eat lunch between 11:25 and 12:05. You know your times. And have a number of problems during our lunch period. We would certainly appreciate it if someone would refill the ketchup bottles, or at least ask the people who eat from 10:45 to 11:25 to use less ketchup. Also, we feel there are too many rules. Take only what you can eat fast, bust your tray, recycle, keep your voice down, and do not run. See that? That's a run-on. But this usage of a colon is when you've got a list of things that comes after. What do you mean by too many rules? Well, here are the rules that we don't like. Take only what you can eat fast, bust your tray, recycle, keep your voice down, do not run. If you didn't want to use a colon there, you'd have to do something like, we feel there are too many rules, such as taking only what you can eat, and you'd have to rewrite the whole sentence, basically. But a colon does a nice job there. A real problem occurred one day last week. We ran out of low-fat milk. What's the problem? The colon says we're going to explain what we mean by this. So we ran out of low-fat milk. This is still recording, right? Yep. And it explains the first one. So the colon, again, we ran out of low-fat milk works as a complete sentence, but in this case, this sentence explains what this one means. Could you use a semicolon there? Yeah, I mean, You could, because grammatically they work basically the same way in this context, but in terms of the content, the colon works way better. We would like to recommend the following: have plenty of low-fat milk, put salad on the menu every day, and check the ketchup supply. So where does the list start of the things that they recommend? Here. We would recommend the following. Boom. Here's what we recommend. Have plenty of low-fat milk, put salad on the menu every day, and check the ketchup supply. It's a cereal commas, have plenty of low-fat milk, all parallel verbs. We have 4 dislikes: tuna casserole, peanut butter pancakes, rye bread, and prune bars. Again, we've got a list of the things that they dislike. So, what are those things we dislike? Well, let me tell you, here's the list. And here's my colon to introduce the fact that I'm going to give you a list now. Thank you for encouraging us to eat less of those deadly ingredients like salt and sugar. However, we would like to make one suggestion: more chocolate desserts. Yeah. See, I couldn't even say it normally without getting my tongue tied just a bit. So, one suggestion: more chocolate desserts. Sincerely, Jake Barnes, Ward McLean, and Stan Torres. All right, page 1 is done. C'est fini. Correct any comma errors. Some sentences need no correction. I took Angie, the one with the freckles, to the movie last night. Again, we talked about interrupters a while back. So, what is the real sentence here? I took Angie to the movies last night. And in this case, we think maybe you don't know who Angie is, so we're interrupting with a little bit about who she is. The one with the freckles. That's in a positive phrase. This renames or gives more information about Angie. And since it's not the main sentence, we set it off with commas. Jeremy and I have had our share of arguments. No commas needed. Get rid of them. Because Jeremy and I is what we call a compound subject. When you have one of those, you don't do a comma. It's not like Jeremy went to the store, comma, and I didn't. They were working together, and then you would never, of course, put a comma between the subject and the verb, I and have, so just get rid of those. You are, I am sure, telling the truth. The real sentence here is you are telling the truth, right? So I am sure needs to be set off with those commas. Really, an easier way to do this would be to say, I am sure you are telling the truth. Then we're got a more straightforward. But you can interrupt this way if you want stylistically. That's fine. That is fine. She left Albany, New York on January 18, 2014 of that year. So you just have to remember, when you're separating a city from a state, you do the comma, right? That way you know where one name stops and the next one begins. Similarly with dates, you would need to know where one number stops and the other one begins. We can probably be pretty certain that 18 is the day and 2014 is the year, but just to be safe, we put a comma there. I need sugar, butter, and eggs from the grocery store. Your cereal comma here is good because we're separating the items in this list, but why do we have this from the grocery store? We don't need a comma there because it's not part of the list anymore. These are the things that you need from the grocery store. Please, Sasha, come home as soon as you can. Right now what this is saying, please, Sasha, come home as soon as you can. Like, by coming home as soon as you can, it's going to make Sasha happy. But what we're really doing is we're telling Sasha to come home as soon as she can. So we say, please, Sasha, come home as soon as you can. Or he, if we're Russian. I knew a dude named Sasha in college. Although you may be right, I cannot take your word for it. This is an awubis. Although you may be right. Subject, verb, doesn't make a complete thought because it doesn't stand on its own, and it starts the sentence. So we do a comma. If you said, I cannot take your word for it, although you may be right, no comma needed. But because the although is in the first half, you do need the comma. We will grant you immunity if you decide to cooperate with us. Just as I said here, now that we have the if clause, if you decide to cooperate with us is second, no comma needed. I am typing a letter, and she is talking on the phone. When you have a coordinating conjunction, putting two sentences together, I am typing a letter, boom, 1. She is talking on the phone, 2. It's comma, and. Or comma, for, comma, nor, comma, but, comma, yet, comma, so. Those fanboys have a comma between them when they connect two independent clauses. Back here on number 2, we didn't use the comma because it's not connecting two clauses, it's just smushing a subject together. She finished her work and then took a long lunch. In this case, there is no subject. It's not she finished her work and she then took a long lunch. It's just she did this and did that. It's a compound predicate, so no comma is needed. May said, why don't you come up and see me sometime? When you're starting dialogue, you use a comma. Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? Why don't you come up and see me sometime? it's still the same subject. You come up, you see me sometime, it's a compound predicate, doesn't need a comma. You said I could go, didn't you? So this is kind of weird. It seems like, I mean, the syntax is weird because the verb comes before the subject, but we have a subject and a verb, so the comma goes that way. It's perfect. To apply for this job, you must have a social security card. This is an infinitive phrase, to apply for this job. There's no subject there. Some people might want you to put a comma here. I don't think it's necessary. It's not a series of infinitives, like to apply for this job, to go down the stairs, or whatever. I don't know what kind of job that would be. I think it's fine the way it is. You probably would not get punished if you put a comma there, though. He seems to be such a lonely, quiet man, doesn't he? Lonely and quiet both describe the man, so you separate them with a comma because they're separate things. And doesn't he, just like up here with the didn't you, we need the comma there because this is a second clause. She wore a brightly colored dress. You don't put a comma here because it's not a colored dress, it's also a brightly dress. Brightly describes colored, which describes dress, so there's no serial comma. It's perfect the way it is. She has a good, healthy attitude about her work. Good doesn't describe healthy, good describes attitude. It's a healthy attitude and it's a good attitude, so we do put a comma there. All right, moving on. Moving on up. Capitalization practice. I feel like most of you guys kind of know these rules. You just have to make sure you actually, like, I don't know, follow them. Let me zoom in just a little bit. And we'll focus again, just to be safe. Make it a little easier to see what we're doing. Okay. So I lived on Elm Street a few years ago. Elm Street, part of the name is street. The American River is cold all year. Now, if we're just talking in the general sense, like American rivers are cold, then you would not capitalize river. But in this case, the American River is one river, that's its full name, so capitalize the R. Do not swim in that river because of the swift current. I don't know what river it is. It's just a generic common noun. That should be a lowercase r. Just to be clear, let's put these big things. You must realize, he explained, that my circumstances are desperate. We're all good here. This is one sentence, doesn't need any extra capitalization. He is just a pronoun, we're not talking, the only time you capitalize he when it's not at the beginning of a sentence is if you're talking about, like, God. And then, in that case, he works in mysterious ways. Stop it, she screamed. Don't ever do that again. Now, see this period? That means this needs to be capitalized. In this case, we just put the explained in the middle of the sentence. It's just an interrupter. In this case, it's stop it, she screamed. It's one sentence, and then she says, don't ever do that again. Two separate sentences, and with the thing, it's not interrupting. She said, we strive hard for a better world, but we don't lift a finger for perfection. So when you start the actual dialogue, then you capitalize. The West has a milder climate than the East. In this case, we're actually talking about the Western United States, like an actual region, and we're using it as a name. And that, if I just say go West, then it's not capitalized. But if I say the West, then we think of like cowboys and beans and all that kind of stuff. And we're talking about a real place, you capitalize it. You must take the following courses: history, geometry, and French. History and geometry are just generic kind of classes. French is a language, and you always capitalize French no matter what. Whether it's a class or a language, or talking about like, oh, the French, I like the French. It's capitalize that F. The supervisor will decide whether state regulations prohibit our taking Monday as a holiday. Let's see. I think we're good here. My only question is whether we need to capitalize state and state regulations. I don't think so. I'm going to consult my old pal Google, though. Capitalize state. Okay, yep. Treat Washington State as a proper noun because we're referring to that, but it's like the state of Illinois or the state of Washington is not a proper noun. So yeah, it's just generic. So yeah, I was right. So don't capitalize that. We're good. Monday is always capitalized. We're fine. My major requires that I take Calculus 1, History, and French. This is right because it's one specific calculus class. It's not just calculus in general, but Calculus 1. History does not need to be capitalized because that is just, I don't know if it's History 101 or U.S. history or whatever it is, it's just like history. And French, as we've already established, has to be capitalized. The Federal Reserve Board, that's a thing. That's a specific board, gets capitalized. Will raise interest rates over many state agencies' objections. As we established here, we don't need to, just a lowercase s is fine. Because we're just talking about general state agencies, but I don't know which state agencies they are. Whereas the Federal Reserve Board, that's a specific thing. Okay, moving on. My dad said I can have the car on Friday night. So it's not, we're not using dad as a name like, hey dad, what can I do? It's like my dad, it's general dad, so we can cross these two off because we wouldn't capitalize dad. My dad said I can have the car on Friday night. This needs to be capitalized, so this one gets crossed off too. It's got to be C. I registered for 4 classes, math, Spanish, English, and history. So the first thing we know is I like to sort of fix them on my own first and then see which one fits there. I need 4 classes, and then these are the classes I need: math, Spanish, English, and history. Spanish needs to be capitalized, English needs to be capitalized, history and math don't. So let's see which ones do that. Oh, super easy. Only one uses the colon. So we just cross these 3 out. It's D. See, we semicolon, no, nothing, comma, none of those work. It's got to be the one with the colon. I love ice cream because it's sweet, cold, and refreshing. So 2 things. It is sweet, cold, and refreshing. So anything that doesn't use the apostrophe S is automatically toast. So then sweet, cold, and refreshing, sweet, cold, and refreshing. Nope, this comma is unnecessary. It's got to be A. Mr. Jones, a coach from the high school, will retire this year. The main sentence is Mr. Jones will retire this year. A coach from the high school tells us who he is. Mr. Jones, a coach from the high school. Nope, there's no comma there. There's no comma there. These ones are toast. And then the high school, that's not really its name. It's just a category. So there we go. Comma, comma. High school is not capitalized. Perfect. Jason got his driver's license today, and he plans on driving to school tomorrow. All right. So first things we have to worry about. We need a comma here, right? So let's just see if this one can't be right because the comma's after. This one can't be right because there's no comma. This one can be right. This one can't be right. So, driver's license, because he owns the driver. I mean, he's the driver and he owns the license. It's a driver's license. It's not more than one person that owns that license, just him. And we got the comma here that separates the thing. So, there we go. C. He began working out on December 1, 1999, but quit May 1, 2000. So, we don't need a comma here because there's no subject in this clause, but quit. All we have is another verb. We do need a comma between 1 in 1999 and 1, 2000. So, anything that's got a comma before the but can be gone instantly. And we just double check to make sure that we didn't have a brain issue. Comma here, no comma there. We're good to go. I want money to go to the mall, whined Jesse. So we need a little comma here. And it goes inside the quotation marks. So this one could be right. This one's not right. This one's not right. That one's got a period, and then why would this is still part of the main sentence? So there we go. Because the whole sentence is I want to go to the mall, whined Jesse. So we know who's saying it and all that. The quotation marks show that where he's talking. So it's got to be comma, quotation mark, whined Jesse. Moving on. And I'm going to stop this video for this next one and start a second video for the second half of the thing. And welcome back, carrying on for part 2. So now we're looking at some just composition stuff. Philosophy and baseball. In the fall of 1967, the Boston Red Sox were playing the World Series. I was a freshman at a university that was located in the Midwest at the time, enrolled in a philosophy course that met at 2 in the afternoon. The course was taught by a native Bostonian. He wanted to watch the games on television, but he was too responsible to cancel class. So he conducted classes those October afternoons while actually listening to the games on a small transistor radio propped up inside his lectern. That's like the podium kind of thing. The volume turned down so that only he could hear. So what we're looking at is university that was located in the Midwest at the time. So what's the problem with this? It's wordy. Is there a way to simplify this? Like, it's grammatically okay, but stylistically and compositionally, it's kind of junk. So I was a freshman at a Midwestern university then at the time. That's redundant, so it can't be that. Then at the time, because at the time means then. So at a Midwestern university at the time, I like that. A university which was in the Midwest, that's just as wordy as the other one. It's got to be C, because Midwestern, just all this that was located in the Midwest tells us what kind of university it was. We can say that in one word with Midwestern, much better. Baseball is unique among American sports by its ability to appeal to a love resembling that of a child of fable and legend. Wow, that's a crappy sentence. Let's see how we can make it better. Which of the following sentences, if inserted at this point, would provide the most effective transition to the second paragraph? So what we're looking for is a sentence to smush in right here. Accounting for this kind of behavior is easy. Most of the students in the class were not fond of this instructor. Today, most World Series games are played in the evening. He did a remarkable job considering how distracted he must have been. Now, what we have to do to decide this is we have to know what this paragraph is going to be about, and we have to know what this one is about. First one is a story about the professor listening to a baseball game while teaching at the same time. So let's read what this paragraph is a little bit further, and then we'll come back to 32. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, Roberto Clemens. Names like these will echo through time that are trumpet calls to storied battles fought. And won in ages past. When Hank Aaron stretched out his sinewy arm to pull one down, striding up to a rack of ash-hewn bats, he became a modern-day knight selecting their lance. Technically, this one actually, we've outdated this now. And when glints of the afternoon sun shone off Mickey Mantle's colossal bat, there will have to be seen for one brief stirring moment the glimmer of the jewels in King Arthur's own mighty sword Excalibur. So there he stood, that learned professor of mine, lecturing about the ideas that have engaged people's minds for centuries. Then he'd interrupt himself to announce with smiling eyes that the Sox had taken a 2-0 lead. Here was a man whose mind was disciplined inside his school book to contemplate the collected wisdom of the ages, and he was behaving like a boy with a contraband comic opened. On those warm October days, as the afternoon sun dances and plays on the domes and spires of the university, the philosophers had to stand aside, for the professor's imagination had transported him to the Boston of his youth. So the gist of this, we have to get the gist to know what it is that we're introducing, is that baseball has this place in the American psyche that just like takes over. So what we need is an introductory sentence that gives that idea, like, this is not that, like, it's not just him. Baseball has this appeal for people. So most of the students in the class were not fond of this instructor. Nowhere in the entire essay does it say anything about the students not liking the teacher, so cut that. Today, most World Series games are played in the evening. The rest of the paragraph doesn't support that idea that they're played at night instead of during the game. He did a remarkable job considering how distracted he must have been. The essay is not actually about the professor. The essay is about the appeal of baseball. And it never gets back to him really teaching the job, except for in the conclusion, which kind of like ties it all back together. So we don't care about that either. Accounting for this kind of behavior is easy. That makes sense because the rest of the paragraph is all about the heroes of baseball and how we all love them. Cool? So, baseball is unique among American sports by its ability to appeal to a love resembling that of a child of fable and legend. So, it's unique among American sports in its appeal. You can't say because its appeal, you can say because of its appeal, but we didn't get that as an option. If you say as its ability to appeal to a love resembling that of a child of fable and legend, you'd need another verb in there, so that doesn't work. And by its appeal, that doesn't work either. It's just wrong. So just knowing how your prepositions work is kind of the key to answering this one. It's unique in its appeal, in its ability to appeal. It's also a little difficult because this is also terrible, so we have to fix that to make the sentence sound a little bit better. So once we fix 34, we'll go back and read the sentence and see how it makes sense. So, love resembling that of a child of fable and legend. Does that sound a little bit wordy? Let's find the simplest way to say that. If there's a simple way, it's almost always right. A childlike love. A childlike love of fable and legend. That makes sense to me. Let's listen to it now. Baseball is unique among American sports in its ability to appeal to a childlike love of fable and legend. That makes sense, right? Because baseball appeals to our love of legends and fables and stuff. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, Roberto Clemens. Names like this these will echo through time that our trumpet calls to storied battles fought. So time that are, what is this? So if we say, let's just go down the options. Names like these will echo through time like trumpet calls to storied battles fought. That makes sense, right? Like the names echo like the trumpet calls. Names like these will echo through time in which trumpet calls to storied battles are fought. I don't know what that even means. Time which is like trumpet calls to storied battles fought. The which is confusing and adds extra stuff. Again, if there's a simple answer that works, it's almost always right. This one doesn't make any sense. This one is just, it's too much. So B. Fought and won in ages past. Now, 36. Which of the following sentences, if added at this point, would most effectively lead the reader from the generalization in the preceding sentence to the specific examples that follow? So when we're talking about generalizations, we're talking about just this idea about like, oh, all these heroes and stuff. Now we're going to look at a very specific hero, Hank Aaron. So let's see how we can move from the general heroes to the specific heroes. These heroes of baseball embody the ancient legends, bringing them to life. Yeah, maybe, except we're not really bringing ancient legends to life. Let's keep looking. Maybe. Baseball, of course, is not the only sport that provides heroes. So if this were the case, we'd have to be looking at this afterwards at like other sports heroes. But we're not. We're going to look at Hank Aaron as a baseball hero. So we can easily cross that one out. The battles lasted for 9 innings, unless a tie led to extra innings. Okay, well that's true, but it doesn't have anything to do with going from general heroes to one specific hero. Cross it off. The truly great thing about it is that these men are as human as you or I. So now, if this thing was about Hank Aaron, like ripping his pants or falling down or something, then that would make sense. But really, our best one is A. These heroes of baseball embody the ancient legends, bringing them to life, because we're moving from the heroes into one specific one who's bringing it to life. So that's A. Then this one stretched out a sinewy arm to pull one down, striding up to a rack of ash-hewn bats. It's just the order of information that we have to make sense. In this case, he walks up, and as he's walking up, he's stretching out his arm to pull, and the reason why he's stretching it out is to pull one down. So that logical organization of information is what's key there. C can't be right because it doesn't make sense to strode up to he's walking up to the ash-hewn bats. He's walking up so that he can stretch out a sinewy arm while pulling one down. It doesn't kind of work that way. And then this one is completely backwards, so it's just got to be B. Now, once upon a time, like a year ago, before they changed this rule, just to kind of meet up with what people have been saying a lot anyways, you would never say a knight selecting their lance, because a knight is singular and their is plural. So when we made this study guide, the answer is supposed to be his. In this case, you can actually say no change. If you're a strict formalist with grammar and you don't like the changes that we've made, the idea is that like sometimes people don't want to be specific about a gender. They don't want to say like his or her, and they don't want to say his or her, so they just say their, and we're just used to that. You could also say his. So, yeah, that's brand new. Personally, I'd prefer it if we came up with a gender-neutral pronoun that actually meant that wasn't like implying that there was more than one person, because nobody actually means more than one person. And I think language should be about saying what you mean. I think it's a good idea to come up with a gender-neutral, because I think that kind of thinking is kind of old-fashioned, but I think it should still be singular, unless we actually really mean more than one person, which I don't think is the case. Unless we're talking about like multiple personality disorder or something, but I don't think anybody is. And when glints of the afternoon sun shone off Mickey Mantle's colossal bat, there will have to be seen for one brief stirring moment the glimmer of the jewels in King Arthur's own mighty sword Excalibur. So the issue is with the verb tense. There will have to be seen. That doesn't make sense. It's in the past. So there can be seen, not in the past. Will be seen, not in the past. Will have to be seen, not in the past. It's awful. There could be seen, so you could see it. If you were there, you could see it. So there he stood, that learned professor. Let's see what. So no change. Begin new paragraph to summarize. Do not begin new paragraph. So do not begin new paragraph yet. So yet means that despite all of this, he's doing something else. But in this case, that doesn't work, because he's doing it because he's listening to the game while lecturing. So do not begin a new paragraph. So Okay, so the issue is here is, do we just not start a new paragraph? So there he stood. If we don't start a new paragraph, we think we're talking about Hank Aaron still. But in this case, we've actually gone back from Hank Aaron back to the little mini story about the professor. So it's got to be a new paragraph. That's good. So anything that says do not begin a new paragraph is wrong. To summarize, there he stood up, that he's not summarizing the whole essay. It's going back to the hook story. So that doesn't work either. It's fine the way it is. Also, to summarize is a little bit lame and like, I don't know, middle schooly. So there he stood, that learned professor of mine, lecturing about the ideas that have engaged people's minds for centuries. You don't put a comma before that. You put commas before which. So it can't be this, and it can't be that. About the ideas that have okay. And then it's not going to be which, because if you just said about ideas which have engaged, then that would work. But the ideas is specific, it's a definite article. And that tells you it's a restrictive clause. So it's telling you what kind of ideas they are, not extra information. It's got to be B. If it was like just like general ideas, like, oh, by the way, they've we've been thinking about it for a long time, then you would do the which. So it's that. Here was a man whose mind was disciplined. So who, apostrophe S means who is, but he owns the mind. So it's whose, like this. A man whose. And we're still recording, good. All right, so a man whose mind was disciplined inside his school book to contemplate the collected wisdom of the ages. What? So inside his school book doesn't belong where it is. So do we want to say place inside his school book after ages? So here's a man whose mind was disciplined to contemplate the collected wisdom of the ages inside his school book, and he was behaving like a boy with a contraband comic opened. That doesn't really make sense either. No change definitely doesn't make sense. Let's see after boy. Here was a man whose mind was disciplined to contemplate the collected wisdom of the ages, and he was behaving like a boy inside his school book with a contraband comic opened. Nah. And he was behaving like a boy with a contraband comic opened inside his school book. Do you guys get that image? That's a little bit before your time. You would think of it more like your cell phone is hidden inside your textbook. You're holding your book up like, oh, I'm really reading this, but actually I'm on like Snapchat. Okay, makes sense? Like when people paint the eyeballs on their eyelids so it looks like they're awake during a lecture, but they're actually sleeping. So he's acting like a kid with his comic book inside his school book while he's lecturing. That makes sense. That's really hard because you have to like sort of visualize putting it in different places, and with the page turn it's kind of tough. On those warm October days, as the afternoon sun dances and plays on the domes and spires of the university, the philosophers had to stand aside. So, had to, that's past. So this has to be past as well. Dances, playing, nope. Danced and played, yep. Dancing and playing, nope. So it's just, you've got to make the parallel verb tenses. It's in the past. This is going to be in the past. Had to stand aside, for the professor's imagination had transported him to the Boston of his youth. Due to the fact that the professor was about to hand out a test, has nothing to do with what we've been reading. While the professor told the class about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, we have no idea what he was actually lecturing about, but it probably wasn't that. And that doesn't make sense, because why would he switch from the philosophers to King Arthur? But we know that he's listening to a baseball game. As the professor recounted all the great baseball stars he'd seen play, no, he doesn't even play it loud enough that you can hear it. It's fine the way it is. Okay, last one. MLA formatting. Your name. You guys, we've done this over and over again, so this is just a quick reminder. Teachers, class, like English 1. Date, which is day, month, moth, year. No commas. 18 May 2017. And then this is your last name plus the page number. So Smith 1. And that's up in the upper right corner. If your essay is here, you got do. There's your title, and there's your last name and the page number. Correct choice for the date portion of the heading. We just said it. 26 May 2008. You don't need commas because the month separates the day from the year. All this stuff, no. When formatting a paper in MLA style, the correct font is Times New Roman. Font size is 12, and the correct margin setting is it's an inch. We never change that, so just leave that alone. Best choice for the header when numbering your second page. Johnson 2. It'll do that automatically as long as you put it in the first time. Do you need a header with your last name and page number for the works cited page? No, but it won't kill you if you have it. Using the following information, put in the proper citation. I just didn't want to be in Harlem anymore. So this was from, so it's page number 55 by Walter Dean Myers. You do the author's last name, Myers, 55, and then close the parentheses. All right, I hear students coming, so I'm going to finish this video. I'll finish the thing on the next video. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at some word stuff. And this is all just stuff that just, if you're not familiar with them or you don't remember or whatever it is, just go back and look at where we're going. These parts you don't have to do anything with them, just review. So ambi means both. If you're ambidextrous, that means you can use either hand. If you're ambivalent, that means like you can well, okay, I see why we should say yes, I should see why we should say no. I can't decide because I got both sides. Bene is good, well, like benefit, benevolent. A benevolent person is somebody who helps you. A benediction is where you say a nice thing about something, like diction. Benefit is something where you get something good from it, right? So just looking at those, being kind of familiar with that. Re is again. Pro is forth, forward, beforehand, like proceed, produce, progress. We're moving forward. Miss is wrong, bad, not, like misguide, like I guided you in the wrong direction. Misunderstand, I understood it wrong. Mistake is I did it wrong, so wrong or bad. Now, vocabulary. This is where it gets a little bit trickier. These are things that have come up in our reading. We've talked about them briefly, but like vocabulary comes, vocabulary goes. We don't have real specific units on vocabulary, but we have talked about a lot of these words. So adorn is when you make something pretty. Maybe Athena adorns Odysseus with all kinds of fancy clothes and stuff. The official definition is make more beautiful or attractive. So, make something to make something pretty. Decorate. That might be the easiest way to think of it. It is a verb. It's important to know the part of speech so that you know how to use it. Like, I can't give you an adorn, but I can adorn you with jewelry and stuff. Adversity. That's when, it's like trouble, stuff getting in your way, right? Adversity is a noun. And the dictionary says it's difficulties, misfortune, stuff like that. So trouble, difficulties. If you persevere in the face of adversity, that means you're struggling on even when stuff's not working out for you. Aloof is when you stand off, you keep away from people. It's an adjective, so it means like standoffish. If everybody's having a party and I'm sitting in the corner, I'm holding myself aloof. I'm not getting involved with all the other people. I'm not being particularly friendly or forthcoming. Incidentally, usually at a party I am kind of aloof and hiding in the corner because that's just how I am. It's more awkward than aloof, but the intent is not. The opposite of that is amiable. The next word. It's another adjective. Adjectives describe nouns or pronouns. They give you more detail. So amiable is, you ever heard the French mon ami? That's my friend. So friendly. If you're amiable, then you're a friendly person. Articulate can be an adjective or a verb. So if you're an articulate person, that means you're a person who speaks well. If you articulate something, it means you explain it. So let's drag a little line here. So well-spoken, clear and easy to understand. Okay, so if you're an articulate person, you're well-spoken, you're able to explain things really well. If you're going to articulate, it's to explain. So let me articulate these directions for you, and I'm going to break it down in all the parts. Cunning is an adjective. Odysseus is cunning, clever, tricky. So he's a cunning warrior. That means he's not just going in with brute force, but he also comes up with good plans and tricks and stuff. Cynical is an adjective. You can be cynical. Cynical, like a cynical person just thinks that people do things for bad reasons, like self-interest, or they basically just don't trust that people tell the truth. So a cynical this one's a little bit hard to write in just a few words. So it describes a person who thinks most people act for selfish reasons. So if you give a cynical person an ice cream cone, they're going to say, all right, what's the catch? What is it you want from me? Why are you doing this? Whereas somebody who's not cynical would be like, thanks. So feeble is an adjective. It's weak. That's a weak. So weak with W-E-A-K. So like an old person is feeble because they can barely walk and stuff, like really old. So just something that's weak. The opposite of that is formidable. Which is another adjective. Strong. Strong and impressive. Odysseus is actually a formidable warrior. In addition to being cunning, he's also quite strong. Malignant, the root of this mal just means bad. So malignant, like a malignant tumor is one that will kill you, or will hurt you. A benign tumor is one that just is there and it's fine. So adjective. Let's see what the dictionary actually has to say. If they've got a more concise way of doing it than I have. So bad, dangerous. The dictionary says malevolent or infectious. So malevolent is just as confusing as malignant. So let's just stick with bad. If something's malignant, it's bad. Dangerous, maybe even evil. That might be a little bit strong, but whatever. Morbid is all about death. If you have a morbid fascination with with car crashes, that it's because you're kind of interested in death. So all about death. So if somebody's like, this topic is really morbid, can we move on? Can we stop talking about death? It's creeping me out. Obstinate is another adjective. Lots of adjectives. I believe the easiest way to say this would be to say stubborn. Obstinate, stubbornly refusing to change one's opinion. So stubborn, that's the easiest. Stubborn. So stubborn, refusing to change your opinion, which is different than like a stubborn stump that you're trying to get out of the ground, because it doesn't have an opinion. It's just hard to move. And ravage is a verb. It's like to destroy. And like if you ravage a village, you raid it and you loot it and you destroy it and you smash it all to the ground. Cause severe and extensive damage. Destroy. Cause serious damage. They were playing Skyrim in class today and going around just killing people. They were basically ravaging a town. All right, so now here's a little passage from the Odyssey. And this is just basic text analysis. I took the victims over the trench, I cut their throats, and the dark blood flowed in, and up out of Erebus they came, flocking toward me now, the ghosts of the dead and gone, brides and unwed youths and old men who had suffered much, and girls with their tender hearts freshly scarred by sorrow, and great armies of battle dead, stabbed by bronze spears, men of war still wrapped in bloody armor, thousands swarming around the trench from every side, unearthly cries, blanching terror gripped me. So what's the mood of this passage? Is it joyful, terrifying, humorous, or regretful? Well, let's see. We've got dead people screaming. He's terrified. He literally says, blanching terror gripped me. So I'm going to say that's terrifying. What line has an example of personification? I took the victims over the trench, I cut their throats. Nope. Line 4. Brides and unwed youths and old men who had suffered much. No, those are actual people. 6, 7. Men of war still wrapped in bloody armor, thousands. I don't think so. 7, 8, 9. Unearthly cries, blanching terror gripped me. Yep, it's 9, because personification is when you take something that's not human and make it seem like human. Terror doesn't actually grip you. It's not even a real thing. It's like it's an emotion. So we're personifying it, making it like if terror were a person to grab you. According to line 9, the word unearthly most likely means frightening, funny, delicate, or strange. It's not funny, and it's not really delicate. Unearthly cries. They are frightening, but I think they're frightening because they're strange, like they're from a different place. They're not from Earth, right? They're unearthly. Where is Odysseus according to this passage? The Cyclops, the land of the dead, the land of the Ciconis, or back in Ithaca? Well, there's dead people all coming up, right? Remember he had to go to the land of the dead to get that prophecy from Thrasius? I'm going to say the land of the dead. And I think that's the entire review packet. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, just take your time with the test and make sure you do all your process of elimination. You just cross off the ones that are wrong and then circle the one that seems the most right. All right, good luck, guys.